Welcome to this edition of Richfield Forum, a program designed to be an informative, objective, and civil discourse on topics that should be of interest to the citizens of Richfield and to the population at large. I'm Bob Hall, your host for this show. My guest today is Pat Elliott, who is one of 4 candidates who will be running in a primary September 9th to represent Ward 1 on the Richfield City Council. Ward 1 is the area west of I-35W. In the interest of fairness, none of the candidates will have seen their opponent's interview prior to having their own. Pat Elliott, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Bob. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning with you.
Well, thank you for taking the time to tell the citizens about you. It's an important thing. To start us out, maybe you could give us a little background about your personal history.
Sure. And just by necessity, it'll be somewhat of the shortened version. My family first moved to Richfield in the spring of 1953. At that time, my mother, father, had an older sister and a younger sister. I attended Sheridan Hills to finish kindergarten. Went to St. Peter's from grade 1 through grade 8. And then graduated from Richfield High School in 1965. Joined the Army immediately after graduation from Richfield, was in the Army for 4 years, returned to Richfield. At that time, my mother was living on 76th and Pleasant and lived with her while I attended a couple years at the university. Took some time off to explore other opportunities, came back and graduated from the University of Minnesota in 1977. Graduated from Hamlin Law School in 1981, and in 1985, my wife and I bought our first house in Richfield. We continue to live in it on 67th and Oliver, and we've been in the community off and on, like I said, since 1953.
Now you have a few other relatives, I understand, that are in the city.
Yeah, my older sister has lived continually in Richfield since 1953, and during the period of time when I was exploring other opportunities, my mailing address was always her address in Richfield on 75th and Pleasant, which was right down from the old Little League fields. Jerry had 5 children, of which 4 are current homeowners in Richfield, and have children engaged in the Richfield public school system. I've got another sister that also owns a home in Richfield. Her 3 children live in Richfield, and 2 of them own homes in Richfield. So in terms of an extended family, we certainly give credence to the fact that Richfield is a small town within a large urban community, and very much a sense of any time I've returned to Richfield after travels of being home again.
Have you run for office before?
No, I haven't. The only active involvement I've had on the political side is I was appointed, we lived in Minneapolis shortly after we first got married in 1980, and I was appointed by Mayor Don Fraser to the Mayor's Committee on Chemical Dependency Relief and Rehabilitation, and served on that while we continued to live in Minneapolis, had to retire when we moved to Richfield. And in Richfield, I worked with Mark Jenkins and some other individuals that were heavily involved in school board matters on referendum matters. So we've canvassed neighborhoods, have talked with people in regards to the importance of schools and fundings for schools, but that's about the only real political involvement I've had.
What prompted you to run for this seat?
There were a number of things. I would candidly state that 2 or 3 years ago, Mark Jenkins and I had discussed perhaps running for mayor at that time, just because Mark's perception was I was heavily invested both from an emotional and a personal standpoint with Richfield and its prospects and future. At that time, I still had, my youngest child was in high school, was heavily involved in the athletic program, including hockey, volleyball, and softball. And I had made a determination early on when my elder children were young that the priority was if there was any event they were participating in or had an interest in, that I wanted to be able to go. And Mark had told me, after having served some time on the school board, that if you're going to do it, you have to be prepared to make a huge investment in time, effort, and attention to detail. And I felt that it would be depriving my daughter of whether she liked it or not, my attendance and participation in her activities, or I'd be depriving the city or the people that perhaps had voted me in, because I couldn't pay 100% attention to either. So I felt once Shay graduated from high school, was off to college, that I would explore opportunities in working with or serving in the community. And when Susan Rosenberg, after 16 years of stellar service on the council, decided not to run again, it seemed the opportunity was presented, and I thought, you know, it may be a nice time to present myself to the city and see if they had any interest in having me work on their behalf on the government.
So how have you prepared yourself to be the Ward 1 representative?
As I indicated, I've talked at length off and on with Mark Jenkins, who is a font of information, and interestingly enough is probably best serves as a counter. I think we all have good friends that when we engage in political discussions, we discover that despite how well we may know someone, we're not necessarily all on the same page politically. And Mark serves as a wonderful counter because his political opinions and beliefs differ somewhat from mine. But it allows you know, the opportunity to discuss and defend your views with a friend, so that you really are open and objective and getting the information back, so that when you do come down on one side or the other, you at least rest comfortable with the fact you've got the information. So Mark's been invaluable. Susan Rosenberg has been good enough to meet with me on a couple of occasions. I wanted to pick her brain in regards to, after 16 years, she certainly knows the concerns of Ward 1 and how they play out against the community as a whole. And she's shared time and information with me that's been invaluable, and also has once again prepared me for the fact that this shouldn't be viewed as an avocation. It may be a second career, however you want to call it, but it's an investment of time and effort that the city deserves, and if you really intend to go forward with it, make sure that you make that commitment. I've also had some conversations with Fred Rogie in regards to his service, his first year on, or first couple of years in the city council, and what to look forward to and what you have to prepare for. So it's basically talking to the people that have been there, done that. And it seems to me that's the best source of information, and once again, I applaud them all for being so willing to share it with me.
What are some of the key issues that you think will face Ward 1?
You know, it's kind of exciting, because I think that Ward 1 is in a position now to have some interesting things going on within its confines. One is, and this was after I had visited with City Hall and Ms. Gibbs and received the petition for nomination, and had gotten it filled out and had yet to return it. Got a phone call from my wife. We live on 67th and Oliver, right across from No Name Park, and my wife called and said that you might want to come home from the office because there's a press conference going on across the street. And I asked her what it was about, and she says, you probably should come and listen. So I didn't have any idea. I got there, and there were TV cameras, some of the local officials from the city of Minneapolis, city council members and staff people from the city of Richfield informing the population at large, just not Richfield, but this was publicized over the broadcast media and also the newspapers, that Richfield had been part of or was participatory in a grant program and had received money to have a dedicated bike path on Oliver Avenue, running from, it differs a little bit, but running basically from the Best Buy down to the Crosstown. It was an interesting dynamic, because on the one hand I thought a bike path certainly was something that was entertaining and useful to the citizens, and I ride a bike myself. What disconcerted me somewhat is the fact that, as far as I can tell, nobody on Oliver Avenue had been informed that anybody was applying for a grant, it had been granted, or that there was any plan in motion. So in discussing this with some of the city council and the staff people were there, they told me that it happened in a fairly rapid progression, and that there was some early notice, I think in April of 2008, about the possibility, or at least outlining this. And my main concern is there was printed materials handed out that indicated that one of the possible design plans was that would prohibit any cross traffic on Oliver for the entire length of the bike path. And needless to say, that caused a fair amount of concern on my part, and even more on some of the neighbors who I discussed it with. So that was an impetus that led me once again to finalize the decision to run, and also to try to make sure that if we run into a situation where the city of Richfield is presented with something that may be a great benefit to the community at large, or any particular ward, that the citizens are involved and made aware of it up front. So I mean, to make a long story short, the Penn Avenue bike path obviously is going to be a major concern and involve major involvement, hopefully on the part of the citizenry, to make sure that while we accommodate bike groups and everything else, that it has a positive impact on the people that live on Oliver as well. It's got to be a shared benefit. We just can't say this is great for one group of people and the others will just have to grin and bear it. So that's one issue. Another issue is, and I've been exploring quite at depth over the last couple of weeks, is some of the information that's coming out in regards to Penn 66th and the business development and some long-range plan to see what can be done about the Penn and 66 area to promote new businesses, better the businesses that are there, involve the citizens that live in or around the intersections, so that we've got something that, once again, not unlike some of the other areas that have been developed in Richfield, a positive picture of Richfield itself. There's been not much going on Penn 66 in the 24, 25 years I've lived in Richfield. There's been various moratoriums and prohibitions against developing any of the property because of anticipation that it's somewhere down the road there's going to be improvements made, and so let's do it in one fell swoop. I've been made aware of the fact that there's kind of a grassroots organization and celebrations set for August 10th, trying to involve some of the neighborhood citizens and the businesses, trying to take a look at what I've been told is a comprehensive plan put together by a non-municipal related architectural firm. So I'm not real sure what the genesis of this was, who started it, who is participating. So I think that it's ripe for involvement of the citizenry and everybody else to try to step in and see what the plans are, assist in any way that we can as a citizen, first of all, to implement it, and then if in fact I'm blessed enough to get on the city council to work on the municipal side in seeing that the plan is followed through, or it makes sense for everybody in the neighborhood and the community at large.
Would your preference be to keep the businesses that are there, or new housing, or what kind of thinking?
When you think about the 4 or 5 blocks that are kind of encompass the Penn 66 from the crosstown down through 67th, 68th, there is right now relatively little residential until you get past 67th and Penn. And then it's kind of, I think it's a mixed use. You've got obviously Penn Cycle, and I recall, I knew Mike Sorensen when I was growing up in Richfield. Mike Sorensen's dad's the one that started Penn Cycle out of his garage. And so obviously, and the Sorensens lived in the home adjacent to Penn Cycle, at least up through high school. I know that Mike is out in the southern suburb now. And so you had a mixed commercial residential at that point. But I think that it may be well suited, particularly if the businesses stay local, as opposed to, I'm not interested in any franchise enterprises or anything coming in there. I think I'd like the local flavor. And I think that there's a place for some multi-family residential. You'd have to take a long, hard look at the plan and make sure it's not too dense and everything along those lines to, I think, merge with the overall plan. But once again, I would prefer that the local businesses that have been there for an extended period of time participate and be involved in the planning process so that we can update it, and if at all possible, keep the businesses that have been there for an extremely long time.
If you went to housing along that, would you like to see more of the type of row houses that are on 69th and Penn?
Yes. I would like to see row houses, townhouses. In talking with Ms. Rosenberg yesterday, I had indicated to her that, to the best of my recollection, the first row houses in Richfield were the brick units on 62nd Penn, directly across from Lund's. My family actually moved into those in 1962, and we lived in one of those units. And I bring this up because I would like row houses that are family friendly. When we moved in there was 4 children. I had two sisters and a brother and my mother. And it had 3 levels, bedrooms for my brother and myself, and then my mom and my 2 sisters. So it accommodated a family unit. That's what I would like to see. I'd like to see row houses have had a huge impact in major urban areas, and if they're done right and they're family friendly, not only do we have the ability to bring additional families in, particularly for a single parent unit and everything, they're very adaptable, they're very cost effective for families. We can get families in, we can keep them here. And I think that's one of the priorities in taking a look at this, is trying to figure out not only maintaining the population base we've got, but seeing if we can increase it, because by definition we get more kids, we get more funding for the school, and the whole thing gets circular in improving and making a better Richfield.
So the schools are an important part of your thinking?
There was a fair amount of research that Mark Jenkins did in regards to the referendum back on the school bonding project, and I will stand corrected on this. It had to have been 6-7 years ago when we were participatory in this. Mark did some research on home values and the direct correlation between those and the school system. And there's an enormous amount of statistics out there that indicate, particularly with new families moving out of an existing neighborhood and into a new one, or coming from outstate. First and foremost, they ask the real estate people and everything else, what's the school system like? Where can I find out information about the school? What are the test rates and everything else? And there's a corollary. They want to move into the neighborhood. Their first priority is making sure that their children are in a school system that's going to benefit them. Correspondingly, then you know, it gets circular, because they're going to come in, you're going to have the schools, you're going to have the funding, and it feeds in, because the first thing you do is the more families, the more youth coming and participating in your school system, the more stable or rising values are attached to the real estate in that community. So I don't think you can separate them in any way, shape, or form into the fact that property values and the value you're going to have in your home has a direct correlation to the health of your school system.
When you were talking about the development of Penn and the intersection at 66th, is there, what would be your opinion of the likelihood of a roundabout such as that which is recently opened at Portland and 16th?
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. And I watched a fair amount of the city council meetings and the dialogues and the expert consultants testifying about the cost effectiveness and the safety of roundabouts, particularly in regards to 66 in Portland, and was skeptical, to say the least, just because I'm somewhat familiar with the volume of traffic through there, and was concerned about the learning curve on people understanding what yield means as opposed to stop, understanding the signing that says outside lane for if you're going to turn the right, if you're going to continue across, stay in the inside lane and come out. And you know, we have a intelligent, smart community. So it's not like this was rocket science, but it's we're used to driving a certain way since we received our permits and our driver's licenses. And any time you bring something new into the equation, there's a learning curve. I went through 66 in Portland yesterday, and it's still under construction, but they actually have the mechanics of the roundabout in play. And once again, ran into the situation where whether you run a couple ads in the Richfield Sun Current saying yield means yield, it doesn't mean stop. If it's open, go move into it. Educating the people and just giving them hints and continuing to say this is how it works. It's a continued flow of traffic. So you know, be careful, but let's work through this. In that sense, I think it's going to be okay. It wouldn't have been my preferred method of controlling traffic through that intersection. With that being said, I don't think, and I may stand corrected, and that's why there's consultants, but 66th and Penn right now, with the construction that's going on in the major freeway systems, number one, a roundabout through 66 and Penn probably would have to be 3 lanes. I don't think you could service the volume of traffic through there with 2 lanes. And once again, it's a whole nother learning curve when you get multiple lanes going through a rotary. And so I could certainly be convinced that it's appropriate, but as it stands right now, I don't know that I would endorse that type of traffic control at 66 and Penn.
When you were talking about the bike issue, the plan that was put forward in April that you mentioned also includes Upton and Sheridan and Russell and 73rd and 75th or 6th. And
right.
And also on the east side, so it affects a lot of folks.
It does. And more importantly, and like I said, I wish I'd had the time to further explore, inquire into those other areas, because what I've seen is a color-coded map. And obviously, living on Oliver Avenue, my first priority is trying to figure out just exactly how they were going to accommodate it. Was there going to be a solid 10-foot white line designating a 10-foot bike path, which on Oliver, which would in essence mean there'd be no parking the entire length of Oliver because the street's not that wide in the first place? Are they going to allow cross traffic? Is it going to be limited to main thoroughfares such as 70th and 73rd? So, and there was a personal interest in that, obviously, because I live on Oliver. I was shown a color-coded map that indicated that there was other areas, just like you indicated, 73rd being one, some length of Humboldt Avenue. But all I saw in regards to that was short markings on the map indicating that these also were part and parcel of the grant, with no explanation as to what that meant or what kind of restraints or designation was going to happen there. So there is definitely at least concern because it impacts not just on Oliver, but people in various other small pockets of West Richfield.
So one of the other recent issues was the RV issue. If you were on the council and such an issue was brought, a problem that needed to be addressed, what would be your management style? How would you approach that as a council member?
The first thing I would do, and I believe that at least in some of the printed materials I've seen about this, there was an indication that there was an existing municipal ordinance that at least had some direct correlation to the parking of RVs and other snowmobiles and things like that. I guess the first thing I would do is take a look at the existing ordinances, see how they're worded, see at least what concerns are being brought to the council in regards to whether or not that ordinance is, number one, being enforced, or number two, if enforced, it would be effective. I think it's like anything else when you have people with countering opinions. You need all the information that you can develop from both sides, both perspectives, and even neutral perspectives, just to see what they think about it in terms of being impairing on your sight lines, everything, and enjoying your own home. So I think that before you can even begin a dialogue, you have to know all the facts from all perspectives so that you have an understanding at least what you're being presented with.
So regardless of the issue?
Regardless of the issue, information is golden. And the more you can get, the better decisions you can make.
We've got about 3 minutes left. Can you, what do you feel about a sanctuary city? That's been discussed?
I have a fair amount of discomfort with a sanctuary city concept for a couple reasons. Number one, I don't think it's appropriate for elected municipal authorities, whether it be a council member, an alderman, a city mayor, anything else, to mandate what questions your law enforcement authorities can ask anyone during an ongoing investigation. I understand the concept, and I've read numerous reports from police authorities indicating that they will endorse people calling in 911 calls trying to prevent crimes and everything, and not having the person fearful of become the subject of the investigation. I can understand that. My point is some of the sanctuary city things that I've seen is there's a blanket mandate that you are not to inquire, regardless of the circumstances, as to the legality of somebody's presence in the United States. I have a concern with, at any time, trying to direct or control an ongoing investigation, whether it be to a 9/11 qual, a street crime, or anything else. I think that impairs the ability of the officer to take the investigation to where it's leading. Secondly, I have a real difficulty with what we're telling the immigrants that may be illegal in terms of this being a nation of laws. Illegal is illegal, pure and simple. And by virtue of the fact that you're coming from adverse economic situation and you're here to better your family and improve your condition is laudable. It's still illegal. And I'm concerned about what message you're giving to not only those people, but everybody that lives here, that illegal is only illegal if I go along with it. You can't change the concept. And it doesn't, by creating a sanctuary city, you don't address the underlying problem, and that's we've got an enormous immigration problem that has to be addressed. And by doing a feel-good gesture, by naming it as a sanctuary city, you're not addressing the core problem, and you're giving a message that laws only apply if I like them. And I'm real uncomfortable with that.
Okay, another question, entirely different topic. How about tax increment financing?
You know, being a citizen in Richfield, you cannot help but be aware of some of the dialogue and the discussions that have been involved with that. What I would say about it now is in hindsight, looking back, I think some of it's been beneficial to the city. You can't ever project whether or not it's really going to benefit as much as you would like it to, but I think that the city has benefited. So along those lines, I would say I'm not categorically averse to it, but the presentation and the fact situations and the development better warrant putting the city at risk into future tax revenues.
Are there some issues that you'd like to bring up that I haven't mentioned?
No issues per se. I think that the decision I made at this time, because Ms. Rosenberg was no longer running, has been the same in other. And I think that number one, Richfield's future is exciting, and number two, that there's an enormous slate of candidates that the citizenry should get to know and
okay.
And
if you
assist.
can very quickly tell the people how they can reach you.
Yes, I've set up a website, and I also have a separate mail. You can contact me on my cell phone at any time, 612-270-6368. You can email me at elliottforcouncil@gmail.com. We have set up a website that I think will be active Sunday or Monday. It's www.patrichelliott.com. Also, any Wednesday between 6 and 8, I'll be on the deck at 2409 West 66th Street, and I would like to meet you all, and it seems to me, rather than invade your privacy, I just want to make myself available for anybody that wants to stop by and say hello to me and ask questions.
Well, thank you, Pat Elliott, for visiting with us today. And if you wish to comment on Richfield Forum, send comments to richfieldforum@aol.com. Thank you for your attention. I look forward to seeing you on the next edition of Richfield Forum.